Well, with that being said, let's now head towards our panel discussion. As we said, it's a very important and an integral, much awaited topic, Global Fintech Alliances Building Bridges for Cross-Border Innovation in Payments. We are elated that we have with us our speakers and moderator joining us. The moderator being Mr. Arjun Singh, partner and global co-head of Fintech, Arthur D. Little. The speakers being Mr. Mohammad, Alblooshi, Chief Executive Officer, DIFC Innovation Hub, Mr. Harish Natarajan, Practice Manager, Financial Inclusion and Infrastructure, the World Bank. We've got Mr. Ritesh Shukla, Chief Executive Officer, NPCI International Payments Limited, NIPL. With a warm and a thunderous round of applause, let's welcome all of them on stage.
First introduce myself. My name is Arjun Singh. I work with a management consulting firm called Arthur D. Little. They've been around for about 135 years. I do feel like 135 years sometimes in this career. But today's topic is actually quite interesting, right? I don't think there is any forum that has taken place in the last sort of half a decade, if not longer, where cross-border payments does not come up as a topic, and two other topics which get wrapped around it usually is around financial inclusion and innovation. What's excellent here is that I think we have an incredibly rich and diverse perspective on the stage. So I'll let these gentlemen obviously introduce themselves, and you'll hear the diversity as they introduce themselds. But Ritesh, why don't you?
So before I introduce myself, I'm actually curious, who were you consulting 135 years back?
Don't even ask.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ritesh Shukla, and I head NPCI International. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of National Payment Corporation of India. We run multiple platforms with great scale, and the organization that I represent is all about enabling cross-border connections, and I'm very happy to be part of this panel, so looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Harish Natarajan. I'm a Global Practice Manager of Financial Inclusion and Financial Infrastructure at the World Bank. As part of my work, we support developing countries, emerging markets and developing economies in improving the financial inclusion and financial infrastructure like payment systems and credit reporting systems. And also we foster, support regulators and governments in fostering fintech development. As part of that, we are also involved in a lot of the global coordination with the global bodies like G20 and the Financial Stability Board.
Hi everyone, I'm Mohammad Alblooshi. I run something called the DIFC Innovation Hub. DIFC stands for Dubai International Financial Center. We're technically the fintech hub of the city of Dubai, which is home to about 1,000 plus fintech innovation companies. And yeah, our aim and our mandate is to develop the fintech sector in Dubai.
So great. Mohammad, since you're sitting the furthest, let me start with you. I think two-part question. I think the first one, sort of a little bit of expanding on, what is DIFC, and what is DIFC's Innovation Hub specifically. And I guess the second question, which is obvious in this case, is, how are you playing this role of facilitator-in-chief, where cross-border payments is something which has been topical for, I don't know, decades and decades, and there have been all sorts of incumbents, and especially with the UAE being one of the biggest send countries. How are you facilitating this sort of, if I may say, collaboration between the incumbents and the new kids on the block?
Sure. So DIFC, as mentioned, it's Dubai International Financial Center. It's an independent jurisdiction within the city of Dubai that has its own legal and regulatory framework and its own court system. And the reason it was done basically the idea was, how can we establish a jurisdiction that could compete with the global financial hubs, that could provide the same infrastructure that financial institutions can get in London, New York, or Singapore. And I think once we establish that legal and regulatory framework, we've been able to attract anyone and everyone from the financial world. Any top name that comes to your mind from the financial services world has their regional headquarters at the DIFC. So as a financial center, we're the largest in the region, one of the most well-recognized globally. And I think about 7 years ago, we started thinking, we started our mandate towards fintech. Given we're the financial center, we're the government entity that's looking at finance, it is upon us to drive the future of finance as well. And I think that was very clear that we now have to establish ourselves as a fintech hub as well, apart from just being a financial hub. And I think we went through a whole learning cycle because, now we were dealing with a completely new breed of clients. Previously, we were dealing with large institutions. They know what regulation is. These are established institutions in other parts of the world and now expanding their operations to the Middle East. But now we have college graduates that have come up with a new app that want to change the financial services sector. So I think we went through an entire learning journey. But yeah, over the time, we've been able to create our own regulatory sandbox, accelerator programs. We invest into fintech companies as well. We've looked at the overall ecosystem in terms of what it requires, and we've tried to enable. I think coming back to the question that you asked, how do we work with fintechs and how do we enable that collaboration? We take it upon us as our responsibility to enable everyone that is, of course, innovating, but also to guide and enable the large institutions. All the traditional institutions, we take it up as our mandate to help them with this digital evolution. So the first step that we took was launching an accelerator program in partnership with the financial institutions. We bring in all the local financial institutions into that program that could pinpoint some of the challenges that they're facing. And then we go and we scout for startups. These startups could be from the region. These startups could be from outside the world. We invite them and then we help and then we enable collaboration with fintechs. I think over the past few years, we've seen this journey. Initially, yes, there was resistance, but now I think, especially in UAE, and Arjun, you would concur, the banks themselves, the financial institutions themselves are very pro-innovation. They themselves come to us and they're looking for specific solutions. So when it comes to cross-border payments, again, the UAE is one of the largest corridors when it comes to remittance corridors. So definitely there's a lot of interest from financial institutions, from exchange houses. We constantly get requests from them and hence we scout and then of course facilitate POCs, introductions, collaboration between fintechs and institutions.
No, true that. Let me come to Harish, you from a World Bank perspective. Last year I was at Singapore and Ajay actually addressed the audience, and as he always is, he mesmerizes you with his words. And I think a lot of it was around financial inclusion. So if I just try and sort of tease out a response from you, how do you see a growing nexus? It's always existed, right? How are you seeing a growing nexus between financial inclusion and the more important role cross-border payments is playing?
Thank you, Arjun. A lot of times, one of the reasons why people in small businesses are not financially included is because they don't necessarily feel a need for formal financial services. And increasingly, cross-border payments is becoming a major motivator for them to get access to accounts and other financial services. So there are three customer segments, and I'll talk about their case in particular. One is, of course, the migrant workers who have a need to send money back to their friends and families. And they do have access to cash-based remittances, but digital remittances are much more efficient and they're also a lot cheaper, at least 30 to 40% cheaper than cash-based remittances. And this, of course, requires that the family members and friends back home do have access to an account or some form of financial services relationship. So that is one customer segment which is really being attracted towards cross-border payment services. And then the second group is, we can call them freelance workers or gig workers. And they are increasingly in need of being paid. They're working cross-border quite a lot, of course, using online platforms. And they don't have necessarily a means to get access to the wages for the work they have done. And very often, they are also very big kind of customer segments who are really getting attracted towards the financial system. And then there's a small and medium businesses which were largely domestic focused are now becoming increasingly looking for an overseas market for customers, as well as looking for tools which are available on the cloud to improve their own internal capabilities, like maybe access to some advertising services, access to some AI models, access to some hosting services and so on, and for which they need to make payments. And then, of course, as businesses selling to a global audience, they want access to cross-border payment services to receive payments. So these three customer segments are increasingly now looking for efficient cross-border payment services. And of course, there is an unmet need, I would say. And in some sense, some of these segments are not being fully serviced. I would, in fact, go to the extent of calling them some kind of ignored customer segments. So that is the point I wanted to make relate to the nexus between financial inclusion and cross-border payment services.
So last but not least, firstly, thank you for inviting me over again this year. I think the show looks bigger and better. So Ritesh, NPCI's experience with UPI in the domestic market it's incredible. I've lost count, I don't know what, 14 billion transactions a month. It's nearly sort of 500 million a day, right? How is the learnings that you have picked up from, I guess, the domestic success of UPI being applied in terms of the cross-border play that you are spearheading?
Thank you, Arjun. So I'll build on to the comments that Harish made. If you look at India as a landscape, we've seen massive transformation in various areas, including payments. And today, if you see, I think most Indians have a bank account, and that's something that has been focus of the government, focus of the Central Reserve Bank of India, and we have achieved great success in that area. The second factor, if you look at, is which often is not mentioned as much, is the telco part of it. So we have about 1.15 billion mobile connections, about 670 million smartphone users. So just imagine, everybody has a bank account and everybody has internet, or most people have smartphone to transact with. And we also have one of the cheapest data in the world. So that makes it even much, much easier. And this combination is super powerful, and we have seen the growth that we have seen in India market. Now we are looking at taking it and making connections globally. In India, our regulator, Reserve Bank of India, a very progressive one, has in their vision document called out for 4 areas that we address when we look at cross-border connections. It's about ensuring access, everyone has access to it. It's about ensuring that we are transparent in the pricing and how the transaction is processed. It's about speed, and it's about cost efficiency. So these 4 factors, if I can say, and they are very much aligned to World Bank's I think paper, they are aligned to G20 agenda. So we are using these 4 as bedrock of our strategy, and we are live with Singapore. We are live with 6 banks there. It's successful pilot. Now we are admitting 16 more banks, 15 more banks in next month or so. So it'll give us a lot of scale here. We are looking at making similar connection with a country neighborhood, and we are also pursuing similar opportunity with Central Bank of UAE. UAE has also launched their own platform called ANI, and we are in active discussions with them to connect UPI and ANI and bring some of those transactions on these rails. So it's an exciting journey, and I think we are looking at delivering on the 4 areas that RBI's vision document outlines for us.
Okay, so let me try and sort of sum it up and ask a question which is for all 3 of you, and any one of you can go first. So there's a clear need, right? I think that's clear. You guys have experience of actually doing it domestically and trying to make it up internationally. Mohammad wakes up every morning thinking around how does he solve problems, and cross-border alliances are big. 2 angles which are quite interesting. One is, how do you see regulatory support move in the direction that will accelerate this innovation? So I'm not just talking about innovating, but how do you accelerate? And secondly is, and I think, here, Ritesh, you can play, I guess, a role of a catalyst is, what are you seeing the domestic, instant payment systems, right? And the fact that a number of them want to connect with each other, right? And bring some of that speed and efficiency and transparency across. So open questions. What are you seeing from a regulatory perspective? What are you seeing from an IPS perspective, which gives you confidence that we're going to see more acceleration and innovation in the near term? Anyone can go first.
I'll give it my 2 cents. I think, Arjun, definitely, I think the market's evolved, regulators have evolved. I myself also partly consider myself a regulator. I mean, we have a regulator, but I work side by side with them. I think we've learned a lot. We are a bit more mature than how we were probably 6 years ago. And there's much more openness today from regulators to kind of come and sit at the table and talk. I think now you actually have all 3 parties, and I usually say you've got the financial institutions, you've got fintechs, and you've got the regulators willing to sit down and address the challenges. I think that's happening. Are we there yet? No. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially in our part of the world, where I mean, there's no passporting of licenses. I mean, it makes life very difficult, especially for someone that is in the payment space or cross-border payments in particular.
Harish, from a World Bank perspective?
Yes. Of course, by definition, digital and digital capabilities are cross-border, but then there are a number of barriers and frictions which impede their full capabilities to be harnessed. So one of them is around the area of infrastructure, which I'm sure Ritesh will touch on. And then the other area is on the compliance requirements and so on. And then the third one is, I think, the regulatory and jurisdictional boundaries, which in a way constrain some of the developments. Now, there are a lot of initiatives globally to address each one of these problem areas I mentioned. One of them is in the area of cross-border payments, which was a roadmap which was initiated under the Saudi presidency, G20 presidency, called the Cross-Border Payments Roadmap. And that set out a set of kind of targets to be achieved by 2027 on cost, speed, transparency, and access of cross-border payment services. And there was also a set of actions which were identified. And one of the actions is related to addressing the frictions related to AML CFT compliance, as well as the data protection privacy regimes which come in the way of some of the ways in which you can improve cross-border payments. So there are efforts underway in those areas. For example, the Financial Action Task Force has come out with a plan to improve the kind of the harmonization and standardization of the information which is transferred for every cross-border payment, so that it makes it easier to then automate some of the AML CFT related checks. And on the data protection and privacy related aspects, there is a consultation paper which has come out, which talks about ways in which you could comply with the domestic data protection requirements, but still be able to exchange data to support the efficient cross-border payment transactions. On the regulatory side, in particular on areas like digital assets and so on, there are global standards which have come out, global best practices and guidance, which has come out, which will help in establishing some kind of consistent regulatory framework globally, and then also ensuring that there's no race to the bottom and so on. So these are the areas I wanted to highlight. And of course, there are at a sub-regional level and at regional level, there are a lot of efforts to improve the integration within the region, and which might also be relevant in this context.
Thank you. I think from our perspective, I think I'd like to highlight 3 areas. One is the market that we are looking to address. If we get about $125 billion every year to India, and the outward is also growing. It's about, I think, $20 to $22 billion, and it's growing much faster than the incoming. So we have a market to address. And there are some corridors that work very efficiently, but there are some corridors that operate at 11 to 12% as cost of remittance. So we are looking at, one is standardizing the experience for users. We are looking at bringing down the cost and speed, of course. The second is regulatory alignment you talked about. So given NPCI's role in India, which is very closely aligned with national agenda of the country, driving inclusion, displacing cash, supporting fintechs, create new and fancy solutions. So we are deeply aligned with regulators' vision. Our strategy is, is carved out basis the vision of Reserve Bank of India. Though we see one area as something that one needs to plan for is like NPCI is a homegrown solution. There are countries that have their own solutions, and these are not built using the same standards. There is some level of uniqueness, there is some level of difference that each of solution carries. So for us to be able to integrate with each one of them, you have to have a different approach, and you cannot have one size fits all. So that actually takes a bit of time. But having said that, we have achieved good traction in the last 3 years since NPCI International came into existence, and we'll continue to build these connections, and hopefully we'll probably in next 2-3 years we'll have many live. So, but I think that's one area that's area of to watch out.
Yeah, so my role is a moderator, but you can't keep me quiet for too long. I think there are 3 big question marks for me. I'm not suggesting we're going to tackle out there. I think there is no doubt that there is more and more innovation, but I think the 3 questions I leave on the table is, in an increasingly multipolar world, right, are we actually going to achieve the regulatory harmonization that is required, right? Question 1, don't seeking an answer, I think it's more a statement. Secondly, I think you made a very interesting point here, Ritesh, which is we have a number of new players coming into cross-border payments, right, using multiple form factors and technologies, and arguably creating more and more closed-loop systems, right, which then need interoperability, and we all know that the cost of interoperability has to be borne by somebody or the other, and unfortunately that cost gets passed down to the end customer, right? Digital assets are coming, we have things called gas fees, half the people don't even understand, and why should we be subsidizing gas fees for organizations to be able to scale for those to go down? And I think thirdly, which is a very interesting angle and something which I don't think we'll have the time to tackle, a lot of the thought goes into what I call retail cross-border payments, right? But the big monolith out here is actually the B2B or the wholesale cross-border payments, right? Which might be, I think, 5x, 7x, if not 10x of the remittance side. And actually, if global trade has to grow, there's got to be a lot more efficiency that needs to be brought in. But in any case, that's just, I think those are questions which I'm hoping over the next 3 days will get addressed in some other forum or the other. I'll come back to you, Mohammad. Mohammad, let's you mentioned digital assets, right? So if I just ask a technology-oriented question, right? Which technology, if you had a crystal ball in front of you today, do you feel in the near term, right, not talking 20, 30 years from today, would you feel will actually play the catalyst to change or innovation acceleration specifically for cross-border payments?
Sure. So I think if you look at Fintech, I mean, if I did a paper some time ago, and I kind of broke down which is the largest sector in Fintech, it's payments. When we talk about technology and its impact on financial services, the biggest impact it has, it's on payments. And whatever technology evolution that we've seen over the past 12 years, 14 years, be it open data, open APIs, be it blockchain, be it and now be it AI or cryptocurrencies, I think it has its fair share of evolution in the payment. It has helped payments evolve. But I think I'm personally very bullish on AI. I think we're yet to see the real impact of AI on payments, how it will probably enhance payments at a rate that is much faster than before. I think it has the capability to enable payments in a manner that we've never seen before. Just the mere pace of it. Yeah.
So from a World Bank perspective, I'm going to go on to, I think you made the point around standardization, right? I think so. So let me phrase the question, right? Because we have to go back to global fintech alliances, right? How do you see, or what does the World Bank want to see, if I may want to put it that way, in terms of these cross-border global fintech alliances being established, which addresses this underlying issue around standardization? Because I agree with you, because the faster we can achieve some level of standardization in terms of technology, at least in the short term, it starts to solve the problem, which I think, Ritesh, you mentioned that cross-border payments can cost as much, even on remittance, as much as 11% in some markets.
Yeah, no, of course, what the World Bank wants is a world free of poverty on a livable planet, but staying on topic here, no, I think the end state is, of course, that you have domestic systems which improve with fast payments capability, with the support of new technologies like AI and all of that, and implemented in a way that it can plug on to some new global systems and ecosystems which are developing. But the fact of the matter remains that it's a journey which is ongoing. Many countries do not have well-functioning domestic payment systems. So we, as an institution, are supporting many countries in improving their domestic payment systems. But then from a fintech perspective, if there are frictions and if there are inefficiencies, that is the problem statement which fintech companies are intended to, are motivated to address. So despite all those issues, there is a lot of activity we are seeing which fintechs are working around these issues and helping improve the situation. So for example, in many of the developing countries, mobile money has a much larger penetration than banking services. But mobile money is not necessarily integrated into the global payments ecosystems. So there are fintech companies which have come in, which have aggregated them and have then provided a single point of entry for some of the global players like, say, the Western Union, MoneyGrams of the world, but also entities like Airbnb, Uber, and so on, who, if they want to make a payment to somebody in a country whose only accesses a mobile money account, they're able to make the payment. But of course, if there are global infrastructures which are available, to which mobile money providers are able to connect onto, then maybe there's no need for such entities. But at this point, that's what is the best which could be done, right? So the effort is to improve the domestic systems, support development of bridge solutions or interim solutions, while we work towards a steady state solution which will improve the problems in a much more efficient manner, but that could take more time. So we need to also focus on the bridge solutions.
Excellent. So, Ritesh, you mentioned interoperability and having to connect with multiple, I guess, protocols or standards and so on and so forth. So let me take that a bit further. As a part of your international strategy and growing, in addition to challenges with technology, what other challenges are you seeing in terms of these alliances being established? What are you doing to manage them?
So, not to sound arrogant, but I think if you look at UPI in India, I think it's way ahead of instant payment platforms anywhere in the world. So I think when we are looking at some of these partnerships, one thing that comes to mind is that we have to slow down in our expectations. We work with extreme agility, and we also do a lot of heavy lifting. So one is you have to align with the way of working of the people you're working with. But at the same time, we are open to different options. There are few countries that we are pursuing bilateral opportunities, and Singapore is one such, UAE is another, which is in public domain. And there are few others that are of importance to us. If you look at the volumes coming to India, you will know which are these countries. But having said that, we have also, Reserve Bank of India has also agreed to participate in the Nexus initiative, which along with Reserve Bank of India is 5 other central banks, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore are part of. So we are going to pursue that as well. I mean, this is an evolving space, and we want to ensure that we don't lose out on the opportunities. So we are pretty open, flexible. And when it comes to tech also, Arjun, just wanted to highlight that we are also looking at doing a lot of heavy lifting. So any message format, if anybody is using a different message format than ours, then we try to build a mapper so that we can absorb that message in the easiest possible manner, having less changes on the other side. Harish made a point that some countries do not have instant payment platform. So we are working with countries who are interested, offering them UPI stack, so that they can also create their own sovereign domestic payment payment platform. And then when that platform is live, we have a plan to connect that with India. So there are various things we are doing, all looking at, again, hinged on the four areas that I highlighted earlier. And there's a lot of flexibility built into our approach. We are looking at a lot of agility as well to make these connections live.
Okay. I'm conscious of time. I want to leave a few minutes for some Q&A. So last question to all of you. You can't have a panel these days regarding payments and not mention CBDCs. So here we go. How do you guys see CBDCs play a role in sort of solving some of the problems that you guys have very eloquently highlighted over the last 25 to 30 minutes? Anyone can have a go at it.
No, I think. Okay, so let me start. So I think, firstly, CBDC is not a panacea. So I think it's not that all the problems will be solved by CBDC. For CBDC to be able to contribute to the cross-border payment problem, there has a lot of other issues will have to be sorted out. But having said that, when you look at new technology, it is not about necessarily solving today's problems, but also about helping you prepare for the future. So I think that is also the area where CBDCs would be relevant, where there are a lot more digitization of or tokenization of assets and so on. And for that, if you need a settlement mechanism, then CBDC could offer a way. And then also the technological construct of CBDCs could make some of the aspects of cross-border payments like foreign exchange conversion a lot more efficient. And then also integrating the financial market transactions with the settlement side. Central bank digital currencies have perhaps an edge in terms of the technological capabilities. So it is not about just the current problems, but also the future problems. And a lot of issues will have to be sorted out before CBDCs can be effective by themselves.
Mohammad? Yeah.
Well, I think CBDC is definitely, specifically in cross-border payments. So we have, let's say, the UAE and Saudi in particular, they're looking at a CBDC for cross-border settlements. I mean, that's one use case. I think central banks will have to look at CBDCs purely because I feel, they want to have their grip on money flows globally. I think they will come up with CBDCs, and I think it will only help digital currencies become mainstream. And it's just a matter of time for it to happen.
I think if you look at India, we have our own CBDC. I think there are 5 million people who are part of it. But I think to understand what CBDC can do, in the opening session, I think the BCG person, he talked about India is the second highest cyber attacked country in Asia. Now just think of, I hope they never succeed, but let's just think there could be a possibility that nothing works and then your CBDC on your phone will come handy in those situations. But I think a lot of times people often get confused and they say, do we do CBDC or do we do instant payments? I think by speaking with intellectuals, what I've learned is CBDC is a form of money, instant payment is a way of moving money. You can very well combine the two and still fulfill your payment needs. So of course, Reserve Bank of India is actively working on it. We are playing some role in the platform. So I see possibilities with CBDC, and use cases like Harish said will evolve. And it's going to be one of the ways that people may prefer to pay in future.
Yeah, there's some very interesting initiatives which are going on. I forget, there's Mbridge, there is Agora, Icebreaker. They're all very cool names, actually. So if you guys are ever interested, you should look at what's happening. We've got a couple of minutes, so I'm happy to raise... Oh, well, there you go. We've got some hands up. Whoever between the two of you got your hand first up, please shout. No, I don't need you to come to the stage. Don't worry.
Thanks. My name is Nivas. This is a question related to CBDC and coexistence of commercial bank money. Will there be an effort to maintain 1:1 parity, or will it be let loose?
I think there's no doubt that there will be 1:1 parity. Now, without that, the oneness of money and all those concepts will be broken, and there'll be a lot of unforeseen implications of that, right? So there's no doubt that the intention would be to ensure that there is 1:1 parity.
Thanks.
Sanjeev?
Yeah, quick question. Actually, this is more to Mohammad and you about stable coins, right? The UAE has taken a very unique approach to stable coins. The CB UAE has come up with some great policy documentation on stable coins itself. And also UAE has a unique position of having a very stable currency pegged to the globe, the US dollar. Do you see the UAE becoming a kind of a global center for cross-border payments and remittances, and how do you see the role of DIFC in encouraging that ecosystem?
That's a loaded question.
That's a hard question. We've got 20 minutes to answer.
Yeah, I'll see what part of it I'm actually allowed to answer. But see, UAE's made it very clear. It wants to be a hub for digital assets, for virtual assets. I mean, there's an entire. I mean, you have, of course, us, and you have ADGM, and then there's a new regulatory body which was only created to kind of serve this purpose. And the federal regulators are looking at it as well. No doubt, UAE will be a major player. Now, to what extent that role will be played, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, we can take one more question, and then you guys can accost all of them once they get off the stage. So we'll go with you, please.
Hello.
Oh, somebody's already got a mic. Okay.
Yeah, over here. Yeah.
Go
So
for
we
it.
spoke about CBDCs and the problem they have in terms of regulatory when we talk about a global level. But how about CBDCs can solve problems, at a small regional level, 2-3 countries coming together, their CBDCs getting connected and solving their problem, not trying to address the whole fish, but catching smaller fish. Can CBDC play a part in, managing these small pickles rather than going it pretty big?
Yeah, so I think there's already an example on that. The UAE and Saudi government have actually are looking at a CBDC that could help with wholesale settlements between Saudi and UAE. So as a pilot, then let's see how that evolves, and then probably that could be replicated with other countries.
Google Project Abir.
Right. And how about India is doing in it? And, where can we see India in it? And how can fintechs help solving, some of the problems there, or pitch in at least?
Sure, thank you for the question, and that's going to be the last one, please.
So I don't think I'm qualified to comment on that topic. It's central bank RBI's domain, so I'll probably give it a skip. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the panelists. Appreciate all of you. Thank you for listening in. I guess we're off.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a one more round of applause. Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Mohammad, Alblooshi, Mr. Harish, Mr. Ritesh. Thank you for joining us.